Tell me a little bit about you, your background, your backstory, and why you wanted to get into this space, or how you got into this space, I guess, to give my audience a bit of a deeper understanding of who you are and, where you're coming from.
I grew up in France. I moved to the US when in my mid 20s. Studied financial mathematics. I worked on Wall Street for a while. I was a quantitative analyst. So my main area of expertise is statistics, microstructure. I worked in a few places, banks, hedge funds, and high frequency trading, which was very fun and interesting for a while. I wanted to do something a bit different, and I went to work in robotics. I worked a little bit at Waymo, which is a branch of Google/Alphabet that works on self-driving cars. And all along, I would say since like 2011, 2012, I got really a deep interest in cryptocurrencies. It's something I had been interested even before we had cryptocurrencies. Like I was super interested in the concept, and it was at the intersection of a lot of things that I liked: political philosophy, economics, the theory of money and banking, cryptography, computer science. So it was almost like a perfect storm to capture my attention. And so I got interested in different coin that existed, of course, Bitcoin, but the different ideas that were evolving in this space at the time. And that's how I kind of like fell in the rabbit hole.
Very cool. Yeah, it's a deep rabbit hole. Was there like any like single point in time or events that really made you want to get into crypto, or was it just a culmination over, just time and building upon you?
No, I think it was time, because I heard about Bitcoin super early on, didn't really pay attention to it. And then, it started growing on me. It's when I started seeing people actually using it online and saying like, hey, actually, this is not just like some cute software you install on your machine. People are actually doing things with it that attracted my attention.
Gotcha. So why start Tezos? Why build it? What was the need that you saw that it could, fulfill?
One of the meme around Bitcoin around 2012, 2013 that I thought was very powerful was that Bitcoin is not a technology, it's a ledger, right? What matters in Bitcoin is who owns what. It's not the technology, the specific technology that powers it. And if better technology comes along, you can always adopt that. So, Bitcoin is evolvable. It's first and foremost a ledger. And that resonated very, very strongly with me. That's how I think about cryptocurrency. But of course, it opens the question, if it is to change, given that it is decentralized, how is it supposed to change? How do you decide on a change when you have so many different parties? And there were different theories. One was, miners vote with hash power. So miners, essentially, if they have enough hash power, can do soft forks. And that, and you can do quite a bit with a soft fork. The other version of this was, we could just agree to like change the code, agree to some sort of hard fork. So there were these methods, but I didn't think that they represented good governance. And the problem with something like hash power or with hard forks is that essentially your incentive is to follow the herd, right? So if you're a miner, you want to mine on a branch that's winning. You don't want to mine on a losing branch because you're going to be losing. So as a miner, you're not really voting with your hash power. You're voting for what you think is going to be consensus. You don't vote necessarily for what you prefer. So it's not really a good decision function. It's more like based on social expectation than it is based on a free choice. So that was same thing with a hard fork. Basically, which branch are you going to treat as valid? Well, you're going to treat the branch as valid that you expect other people are going to treat as valid. So again, it's based on social expectations. And it started most as an academic interest, like theoretical interest. How do we actually get a cryptocurrency that can remain centralized and still have the ability to upgrade itself? How do we get true to this idea of hey, this is just a ledger. The underlying technology can be swapped out, and that led to the creation of Tezos. It started as a hobby, and then it became like more and more important. And at some point, when the block war started, and when Ethereum started picking up, and like people started asking questions around hard forks and governance, I think people rediscovered the project, and they were like, "Oh my God, this is exactly what this is about." And so that's how it came to be.
What is good governance? Like, how is Tezos doing that better?
Good
I know
governance.
that's not a simple question, but
No, of course. I mean, you can define good governance by good outcomes. So good governance is one that produces good outcomes,
Mhm.
and arguably you could define different outcome for your cryptocurrencies that you might consider good. But I will say they're all kind of like correlated. It's it's easy to look at a cryptocurrency and this is like this is succeeding and this is not succeeding. And adoption I think is a good outcome. Just like how widespread it is, how many people hold it, how large of a transfer can you make on it, how fast is it, how private is it, how secure is it. There's a whole cluster of saying which generally are going to be generally like desirable outcome. I would say even something like decentralization, for example, it's not a goal in itself. It's like I think that if you want these good outcomes, you need to have decentralization. But decentralization is not itself a goal. It's like it's how you get there. So that's
Mhm.
censorship resistance, for example, is an important outcome. And the best way we know for censorship resistance to achieve that is through decentralization.
Yeah, everyone pushes back on the idea of centralization in this space, and for a lot of good reasons, and especially of lately, I can understand. But like, in what ways does the centralization help, push and grow the project? Is it just the management aspect of it and being able to, control certain parts until they're fully developed or brought to fruition, or are there other aspects to that that make centralization somewhat important in the process?
I mean, the benefits. So the benefit of decentralization is resiliency. The
Hmm.
benefits of centralization is coordination, typically. Like when you're centralized, you have lower coordination costs, but you have more single points of failure.
Hmm.
So that's a trade-off. You have a trade-off in terms of like of potential efficiency and potential resiliency. Although I think at some scales it does break down. I would say at the scale, for example, of like a country, like we know planned economies don't work. So like at a certain scale, in some sense, you even lose the benefits because it starts becoming just like the complexity becomes unmanageable. But
Hmm.
that's very very large scale. You start seeing these economies of scale. But below this scale, I would say on for most software projects, I will say that you definitely pay a cost of coordination, but you gain a lot in your ability to resist attackers.
True, true. I mean, Tezos has become a pretty big network. Is that at an issue at this point at all?
Yeah. So Tezos is Tezos has a lot of teams working on it, and it's a hodgepodge. We have like teams all over the world contributing to this project, and they're contributing on different parts. They're not all contributing to just Tezos. Some contribute on other projects, and getting everyone kind of like together to agree on standards, for example, or to agree on like good ways to interoperate with different like for different parts of the ecosystem to work together. For example, if we have a block explorer, the block explorer might need to produce an indexer, and
Mhm.
a wallet might need to use an indexer. So if you have no coordination, maybe the block explorer builds an indexer, and maybe the wallet builds their indexer, and now you're duplicating efforts. But with a little bit of work, you can get those two people on a Zoom call, or even before COVID,
Right.
because it's all over the world. So you get people on a Zoom call, and you say like, hey, you both are working on an indexer. Maybe we could work on the same indexer. And because it's all open source work, that makes it easier. So um, there's a balance between trying to have a competing version of the different tools because you don't want to bet it all on one. But once you start seeing some tools becoming kind of standards and used by the community, it's a good idea to try to get the different actors in the ecosystem to coordinate on like let's improve that tool and let's all use that tool because it will save us from duplicating work.
Yeah, this is actually an interesting road to go down. Like in terms of like COVID last year, do you think that it helped or hurt like the coordination in terms of working on Tezos and everything? So I get like mixed opinions on that. Like obviously there are a lot of people that are affected by it. There's also a number of people that are working remotely or work online, or plenty of other projects in the space that are able just stay home and code and work and develop, and they actually see more progress. So did you guys think that you grew more throughout the pandemic and COVID last year into this year, or do you think it slowed you guys down at all?
So I think a lot of teams are already remote. Like
Yeah.
there are teams in Ukraine, there's a team in Singapore, there's a team in Japan, the
Mhm.
US, South America, France. So it's kind of everywhere. So there were already like a lot of remote calls. That's not something new. But within those teams, there was still a lot of in-presence person. And so I do think that overall it's been more difficult with COVID than before COVID, because I'm maybe old-fashioned, but I'm a big believer in like getting people in a room sometimes to
Mhm.
discuss. You have a connection that you don't really get on Zoom, and I'm looking forward to a return to normal. I still think we're going to see a lot of people like working remotely, many days of the week, but being able to get everyone in the same place, I think for morale, for team building, for
Mhm.
discussion, for creativity, I think it's super important. So all in all, it didn't. Obviously, we're still able to get a lot of things done over the past year, but like overall, an impediment.
We should just all get VR, man. We all got an Oculus. We could all have our in-person meetings virtually, right? Wouldn't have to worry about it.
Yeah, I don't know. Like the connection is already like struggling a little bit. I think it got a lot of people off the conferences. Crypto is a space where
Mhm.
there used to be like more conferences than projects, and but conferences are good for recruiting as well, and so that suffers.
Mhm.
Recruiting suffered a lot from the COVID. It gets harder to hire people.
Yeah, I mean, I prefer the in-person experience because you get to like gauge people, see how they are, meet more people, make more connections, um, advertise and promote more. So it's definitely been a weird 2020 and still kind of a weird times we're in, obviously. How does Tezos currently, I guess, stack up versus another competing blockchain? I guess not everything's really competing right now, but in essence, it kind of is, like with Ethereum or EOS or Cardano or Polkadot. Like, where does it kind of sit?
Yeah. So what I find interesting is that I don't tend to think of Tezos too much as a technology and more as a ledger, for the reason that we
Uh-huh.
described. So we were one of the first major smart contract platform to use proof of stake system. So we are proof of stake. EOS has like some delegated form of proof of stake. There's delegation in Tezos, but that's quite different. So we have maybe 400 or 500 validators, and it can support up to
Mm-hmm.
80,000. So it's very different in this respect from something like EOS. And of course, even though there's interesting plans for proof of stake in Ethereum, it's still very much a proof of work blockchain. So we have this advantage. Tezos was not built initially, particularly as a high throughput chain. That was not an initial design goal. The point
Mm-hmm.
was to have a C protocol and then grow from that C protocol by incorporating more and more and more innovation. So in terms of like throughput for like compared to the new chains as like Polkadot or like EOS, it's not trying particularly to go for like a very high transaction number. It's mostly trying to be a settlement layer and then build
Mm-hmm.
on top of that. But among some of the work that's going on has been a lot of work on improving the throughputs. We've actually over the past 2 years multiplied almost by an order of magnitude the amount of computation you can do per amount of
Mm-hmm.
time. So it's not like a big upgrade. It's just like gradually getting faster. There's a big push this year on throughput, and throughput is it's exactly what you think. It's you have a pipe and you want to push things through the pipe, and if you want to push more things through the pipe faster, you need to have you need to focus on all of the pipes. If you have any bottleneck, that's where it's going to be. And so that implies working the storage layers, that implies working the mempool, that implies working the network layer. So basically touching the entire part of the system to try to scale this to much more transactions per second. I think we are like at probably something like 50, depending how you're making the
Mm-hmm.
transaction. And I think over the next year we can easily push that by a few factors. So it's not it's not going for like this like super high throughput. It's mostly going for this, hey, we store a value cryptocurrency, we also support smart contracts, we also support applications, but first and foremost cryptocurrency.
Where's the throughput at, like, currently? Is it able to handle, like, let's say some institutional grade application versus a smaller project similar to like a DApp or something, that like a game, or Or are there existing use cases similar to that are kind of operating right now on top of
Yeah.
Tezos?
So we have some decentralized exchanges. We have some
Hmm.
NFT minteries. We have also a lot of STO platforms which are using the chain. So the NFT STOs, these are not like very high consumer of bandwidth. If you look at Ethereum, by the way, a lot of the a lot of the transaction volume that you see is with Uniswap, and a lot of it is driven by arbitrage.
Hmm.
So it's just that people doing Uniswap are leaving money on the table in some sense, and people want to grab that. So it creates a lot of congestion for transaction. That's generally like minor extractable values, they call it, is generally a big driver for for transactions. I
So,
do think that Tezos will scale. In time. Right now there's plenty of throughput available for applications.
so there's dexes that are like comparable to like Uniswap on top of Tezos right now.
Yeah, pretty much.
Oh, cool. I actually didn't know that. I'm gonna have to check that out. Yeah, stepping back a little bit and looking at the overall market, which has been uh, quite fun to watch, I guess, in terms of growth and everyone coming in and
Yeah.
wanting to put money into the market. And what we just had, what Tesla put like 1.5 billion in Bitcoin, and man, I just feel like it's not going to stop anytime soon. Do you think this is just like a phase, or do you think like this was the real deal? Like people are really moving in this time?
I've thought this was a real deal since 2011.
I
I,
did
you know,
too, but it
so
felt.
I think we're still going to see cycles. It's inevitable. But
Mhm.
you keep saying you keep saying cycle is it's not going to like go straight up for forever now on and forever will go down
Sure.
and go back up. So these things fluctuate. But yeah, I mean, there's definitely like every cycle, I would say there's like a lot of less room for the naysayers to kind of like argue that it's all criminals, or it's all a
Mhm.
Ponzi scheme, or it's all nonsense, it's all tulips. That as you get more and more institutional adoption, that discourse kind of like becomes a lot harder for people to hold.
Yeah, the narrative has definitely changed over the years for sure. It's always gone from, oh, this is a scam, Ponzi scheme, industry, to like, it's like Tesla owns it now, and MicroStrategy and Mass Mutual, and every major
Yeah.
investor wants to get into it. And they're like, oh, why don't you have it now? And it's just, I feel like the whole mentality has really started shifting.
I mean, that's how these things work. These things become selling points, in some sense,
Right.
want it because other people want it. And so that can snowball. But then at some point, people don't want it anymore, and then you worry like, oh my God, people may not want it after all.
Mhm.
So that's why you have this. That's why you have this very. The whole thing is very, very momentum driven. It seems.
Do you think there needs to be more regulatory clarity? Like, it doesn't seem like it's really stifling a whole lot right now, other than, maybe having Ripple deal with the SEC or something pop up once in a while. I mean, it seems like the industry is like just kind of moving forward right now. But do you think that, they need to come out with a bill or some more clear laws or classification for crypto? I mean, I guess it's another number of reasons for why they should do that. But do you think it's necessary or?
No, I mean my own theory of when I'm asked what should the government do, my general answer is apologize and disband.
Yeah.
I don't think they should do anything. If you ask me what they will do,
Sure.
I think it's possible that I mean many countries have like started new specific legislations, and so I think that
Hmm.
in general, like broadly speaking, in the world, we're going to see some specific classifications.
What do you think that classification looks like? Like, do you think crypto should have its own like asset class or?
I think there's different things that people call crypto and the cryptocurrencies and tokens and different things. They're not the same thing. Like you can look at something like Tezos and you can look at something like BNB,
Mhm.
for example, and they're not really the same thing. Um, I think it really I think it really varies. I don't think that the fact that you're on a blockchain matters. It's not about the technology. For me, it's like
Mhm.
my personal opinion is that what really matters is like what kind of rights are associated with like the ownership of a token. That is what I think is like at least for me, economics perspective and a financial economics perspective, that is what is fundamental. Whether the legal frameworks are going to basically follow the financial economics fundamental is another question, but it's not, I'm mostly a technologist. I try to focus on this thing I have agency over, this thing that I can control, and that's
Right.
definitely not that's definitely not legislation. So legislation is going to be what it's going to be.
Gotcha. I mean, I guess from a technological side, I can even say that word, technological. Tezos, I mean, I've definitely looked into Tezos a lot, and it looks like, it has the ability to, avoid some of the pitfalls over other blockchains, where you have to like do a hard fork just to change it, and or there's have a really hard time getting out of that one type of validation system, like proof of work, and getting to proof of
Yeah.
stake. And it just seems like Tezos is a little bit more fluid. Is that kind of just how the platform
Yeah.
works?
Yeah. Fluidity, I think, is a good way to put it. And one thing that's important to understand is that, in terms of hard forks, for example, you don't want to depend on them for making decisions. It's like they're not a good decision tool. It doesn't mean that they're not a tool. So, Tezos has had hard forks in the past for fixing critical bugs, for example. So that can happen, but it's a rare occurrence. And the point is, like, specifically, you want to know how can I make a decision? How can I decide if I want this feature or that feature?
Right.
If you look at Ethereum, for example, they're having a question right now on whether to integrate EIP 1559. The EIP 1559 has a really interesting economic characteristic, but it goes against the interests of miners. And now they have like this difficult conundrum, because if they do hard fork, miners might not support it, but they might support it if they think that everyone's going to follow this chain. So you have a kind of thorny question. And that's why this type of question, you don't want to solve them through hard fork. You want to solve them through a governance process.
Gotcha. Okay. I bet it helps like keep the community together too, like being able to like make a change or upgrade like fairly quickly and not have too much like lag with that divides people. Like, I guess
Yeah,
Ethereum has that problem a lot.
we have like a 2 or 3, like the window for upgrades is about 2 or like an upgrade takes about 2 to 3 months to go through. And it's necessarily it can't be much faster than that, because if you try to make it faster, you don't have enough time to basically review what's going on. People don't have time to vote, so you want to be a little conservative over the time. But still, being able to upgrade every 2 or 3 months is pretty good.
Okay, gotcha. You mentioned you were in London, right?
That's correct. Yes.
What's it like there? Do people like blockchain and crypto and whatnot? Do they talk about it? Do you hear conversations often?
I don't know. I'm staying home. It's a lockdown.
Oh, that's right. I forgot you guys are in like a strict lockdown. Jeez.
Yes.
Well, how's your
When I
lockdown
go to
going?
London blockchain conferences, I'll let you know for sure.
Are you guys allowed to go out at all, or what's it structured like?
Yeah. No, so it's like the restaurants are closed. Uh, Non-essential workers, like people are advised to stay home and not go to work if they can work from home. But yeah, you can go out. I don't think you can go to another city or something like that. But you can, you can go and get your groceries. You can go and take like a brisk walk or this type of things.
You can't leave the city?
I don't know for sure. Actually, I think they have a tier system. It's like
Uh-huh.
tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, and then on Christmas they introduced tier 4.
What? That's
This one
crazy.
goes. Why not call this one goes to 11?
Geez, you guys are crazy. You're gonna have like tier 11 and tier 20 and
Well, they're doing okay with the vaccination. So Israel is leading with vaccination. I think they have vaccinated like over 60%. But among the pack, the UK is doing okay. I think they're almost at 20% vaccination. So fingers
Okay.
crossed.
Well, I guess it's circulating then, huh? So I haven't really paid attention to the vaccination distribution, and especially in the UK, 'cause it's just not near me. But
Yeah,
it sounds like it's getting circulated, right?
it's been very bad. I read an article online on how to make the vaccine yourself by ordering peptides on the internet.
Oh.
I don't recommend doing that. And else, maybe if I were like a biologist and I knew exactly what I were doing, I might try that. But I don't know enough, so I'm not going to do that. But it's interesting that like this kind of like DIY thing is super interesting. I wonder if RNA vaccine are going to create some sort of like decentralization of vaccine distribution and production, because the technique is so replicable. Like you could take any virus, look at
Hmm.
a bit of DNA or RNA that it has that expresses some surface protein. You sequence that, and then you could send it to every pharmacy worldwide, and then you can synthesize a vaccine just on the spot. Like we,
That quickly?
we could go to a world where we have vaccines in days, like distributed worldwide. That would be super exciting.
But are they super effective doing it that way? It's the one thing that worries me about some of these vaccines is they're cranking them out so fast, and people just, I keep hearing people are getting sick, and I'm not saying I'm an anti-vax or anything like that, or that I am, but it just seems like it's a little scary. Like, what if they make it wrong and everyone turns into a zombie or something crazy like that?
I mean, it is the beginning of
So,
many zombie movies.
yeah, right. That's
So
what
it is.
happened in that Will Smith zombie movie, or what was it called? I Am Legend. There's like
I am
some
like,
global pandemic, and they had a vaccine that went horribly wrong, turned everyone to a zombie.
oh yeah, 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 yeah. But he is a well, anyways.
If they're slow zombies, like that's fine. Like I can deal with that. But if like they're running and coming at you, I don't know.
Yeah, that's a new trend. The zombie started. I think it was 28 days after that started the trend of like the fast zombie.
Yeah, yeah. All the video games are super fast now. And then what was the other one? World War Z with like Brad Pitt, and they were all super fast. Like it's starting to scare me. Like I don't want them running. I want them walking. Whatever happened to that? Shit. Yeah. Before we wrap up, tell me what the roadmap kind of looks like for Tezos generally throughout 2021, and um, what people can expect to see developed and um, come out.
So on the protocol side, I think basically like a big focus on throughput. I
Mhm.
think is going to be important and different scaling solutions because we're starting to get applications which need this kind of which needs kind of scaling. So throughput for latency, we're also running probably going to propose a new consensus algorithm called Tenderbake. So it's based on 10 limits, but with some modifications to work for Tezos. So it's what people are getting accustomed to now, which are like finality in a few seconds typically, and after just one block. So that doesn't actually help throughput, by the way. That only helps with latency if you want to be absolutely sure. It turns out that I think people care more about throughput than they care about latency because the fact that uh, lack of confirmation is only important if you have like these very large transfers, and for a very
Mhm.
large transfer you can deal with a little bit of latency. But for interacting with an application where there's not as much at stake, you don't care as much about latency. So throughput is more important. um, More improvements in general, like all over the place. It's a lot of low hanging fruits, but it could be things like, hey, when we load a smart contract, let's cache it on memory instead of like putting it on a disk. So that's on the protocol side. On the application side, there's a few things launching. A lot of things in the NFT space, lending protocols, stable coins, or as I prefer to call them, robo coins, MakerDAO
Mhm.
style. I don't like the like I don't like the basis or implicit dollar type of thing. That just doesn't work. Lending, some games which are launching. I think more tokenization also of real world assets, commodities, STOs. I like to say that this is a good chain for assets. Like it's where you want to put assets, not just uh, like computation.
So yeah, when can I create and buy some NFTs on Tezos or the equivalent to that?
Yeah, so there's a project called Open Minter, which just launched, and basically
Hmm.
like lets you open up an NFT store, so you can
Oh,
use it
I
and
know
you
that.
can run your own store if you want. But there are also like stores which are launching. So OpenSeas just announced today that they're supporting Tezos.
Oh,
Uh,
cool.
you'll be able
That's
to buy
awesome.
NFTs on OpenSeas, and there's a Tezos also centric project called Calamint, which I think is launching this month.
What was it called? Open Minter, something like that.
Open Minter. So Open Minter is kind of like this white label NFT store
Hmm.
that you can use. And Calamint is like more of a custom experience. It's their own store.
Sweet, cool. I'm gonna have to jump on that trend. I'm gonna check that out. trying to get my Apple Pencil to charge for 10 seconds so I can write it down. It's the only thing bad about tech is everything's got to charge. So, but anyways, Arthur, thanks for coming on the podcast and talking about Tezos and giving the people some updates and where it's at and how it's working. And I really appreciate the time. I know you're a busy guy.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Of course. See you next time. Stay safe and stay healthy.
Thank you.